So basically in this session we will be discussing about the web components. So here the agenda is to discuss custom elements, shadow DOM, HTML template and HTML imports. These are the pillars of the web components and these help in understanding Lightning Web Component better. So I will be showing you the code snippets, but you don't have to necessarily go through them in depth. Just a fair basic understanding of it would be good enough. So that's what we are targeting for this chapter. So if we go ahead, as we discussed earlier that in WebStack 2014, all the features needed to build an app was not provided by Web Standard. And therefore we needed a thick framework, web framework layer, which was used to build by the apps. So like Angular, React, or came into picture to provide the standards which were not there in the web stack. And this led to reducing the performance. You can see here there is a web framework and that was needed earlier in the web stack 2014. But as the web stack evolved in 2019, so in those 5 years, we didn't need web framework at all. You can see that there is no web framework. The reason is that web standard itself had all the important key elements like template, shadow DOM, etc. to help us achieve what we wanted to achieve or what we were achieving using the frameworks earlier. So we could create the enterprise level application just like that without using web framework. And then Lightning Web Component catched up and they use the same standards given by W3C, and then they were able to provide us with good performance. So what are web components? So web components are collection of standards which are provided by W3C. So don't worry, we are not going with a science class here, just trying to understand that web component is nothing but the skeleton underneath the structure. So what we understand by this? So web component helps in developing application in more modular way through the custom elements. So you can see that all of these are the custom elements. So web components help us to do that. So if you can see here, these custom elements allow us to break the application into smaller chunks. That's what web components help us to do. So you can see the example of Amazon. So each of these components can be like web components. And then they are having like image, price tag. So see, you can see that these are three, but there will be thousands of like this. And instead of creating like different cards with different content, we can just create one tag like placeholder element for title, for cover, for image, and then we can use thousands of cards. So we don't have to worry in creating so many cards itself. We can just create one and then reuse it. And that is the base of web component. So now there are four pillars of web components like we just named. So we have to understand like what are they. So let's go one by one. So firstly, I will talk about the custom element. So what is custom element? So you would have seen video element for displaying video, or you would have seen the image element for displaying images like H1, H2, BR. Lot of HTML tags you would have seen here and there. You would have used many. But with custom HTML tags, you can create your own tag, and that is pretty cool, right? So basically, as the web evolved, there are many tags which we want to use. So video tag is given, we are just using it. But what if we want to create our own tag and use that functionality? So custom elements help us to do that. We create custom class, which I will show you, and then we use some of the lifecycle methods like connected callback, which we will go through it. So here is the code snippet for it. So as I said earlier, you don't have to go in very much detail about it, but a fair understanding is important. So see, in the HTML, so basically I'm using CodePen here. So here you can see my component. So my component is not any tag which you have used. You have never seen that. So if you try my component HTML, nothing will happen. So, but still I am able to use and still I am able to see hello world. So how is that possible? So if you see here in the JavaScript, I have created a class, and in the class I have named my component, the class name, and then I have extended it with HTML element. So basically what it is doing is all custom elements must extend this HTML element in order to register with the browser, and it extends the HTML element to ensure that the custom element inherits the entire DOM API. Like means any property method we want to create becomes a part of the DOM interface, and then we are using the connected callback. So basically we use this connected callback that we want to connect, and then here we write in our HTML hello world. This is what we want to see here. Once we are able to write this, then you can see that custom element dot define, and through this define we are able to write my component, whatever element you want to define. So here we want it to be my element, and then the class name. So if you go more in depth, then this custom element dot define, so it is coming from the custom element registry interface, and it provides this method dot define, and basically because of which we are able to create the custom component. So to understand in nutshell, because of this we are able to create our own custom element which we can use, and all the code which we can create by ourselves, and then we can use the lifecycle hooks in our class, and that's how we are able to do it. So that is custom element for you. Now to understand the shadow DOM, we want to understand the basic of DOM. So here we already created a custom element. We have a fair understanding about it. I used my name, and here I gave it is H3. My name is Smriti Sharan, so it is coming as H3. And then I used another one, welcome to SFDC Amplified, and then I changed both of the color in the CSS as blue. So you can see here as I change the color to blue, because both are H3, it is changing as H3. Here we write my name, and here we have put it as H3, and this is also H3. So this is a normal DOM which you would have seen. That's how we are able to write. Now once we go to the shadow DOM, so what is shadow DOM? It is used for self-contained component. It encapsulates style and markup. So to understand better, shadow DOM is its own entity apart from the regular DOM. So we will go through it, but it creates with element dot attach shadow. So we just need to use dot attach shadow, and we are able to create it. And then we use the mode open so that it is accessible to the browser. And then we create a shadow root that we can reference and interact with. Obviously, it's enough theory to understand. Let's go in detail. So if you see here, here we want to create an application, and then that application is having its own component. So for example, we have applied the styling to the entire application, but we want a different styling for this. So we can put it as important, and we can change the background color like that. But instead of doing like this, we can create a shadow DOM. So shadow DOM will help us in defining the color for that particular component itself. So it will be having its own properties, its own CSS that will be different from the regular DOM. So we can put in shadow DOM and give it its own styling. That is what it is shadow DOM. So let's understand some basic terminology, and then we can see the code to understand it better. So you can see here the shadow host is the regular DOM node that shadow DOM is attached to. So you can see the uh, shadow is attached to your shadow DOM is attached to it. Then there is shadow tree, the DOM tree inside the shadow DOM. That is that. And then there is shadow boundary, the place where the shadow DOM ends. And then we can start the regular DOM. So here it is showing the shadow boundary, and it shows there where it ends. So you can see there is a normal DOM, attached to it is a shadow host, and the whole tree structure is there. And then there is shadow boundary, which ends it. And then we have shadow root. So it is the root node of the shadow tree. So basically from there it is starting. So let's understand it with the code snippet. So here if you see, the same code is there, but suppose we want a different color, like I just discussed, that we want different color for both H3, but both are H3, so how we can change the color, because here we put it as red. So what should have happened ideally, that both the colors should have changed to red. But now what I want is that my name should be of different color and this H3 should be of blue color. So what we can do here is we can simply put in the styling color blue. So my name Smriti Sharan is coming as blue, though the entire H3 is red. So if we would not have applied this H3 here, if we would not have put the this dot attach shadow mode open, then we would have seen it like regular one and both would have come as red because H3 is red. But as we are putting it inside the shadow DOM, that's why we are seeing it as different color. So let's see, like I discussed, that how we can do that. We can do this dot attach shadow and then we have to put as mode open. And earlier the shadow root was not there, but this time we said this dot shadow root dot inner HTML. So what will it do? It will be able to put the styling to that particular HTML which we are putting it in the shadow root. So that's how this works. So to differentiate the styling, and it will not get it from the general DOM structure. And once you do the inspect element, then you will be able to see shadow root here. So let's see. So here you can see we have done the attach shadow, we have put the shadow root, and then it is coming. Let's do the inspect element. So you can see my name, and also it has to be with hyphen when we are creating custom element as we discussed. Now if you see here, the shadow root is written. Otherwise what should have happened? It would have given the styling like here. See, here it is coming H3 as red. That's how it comes, right? But here it is coming as shadow root. And then once we open it, so it is encapsulated. And once we open the shadow root, here only we can see the color as blue, not here itself. And we can see this like this. So it differentiates itself from the normal DOM. So that is what shadow root is for you. So this is how we understand how the shadow DOM works and the terminology associated to it. So if you like, you can go ahead and try the code snippet and see how it works for you, but not required. And then the next topic is HTML template. So what is HTML template? It earlier we used to earlier we used same markup structure repeatedly on the web page. Like I gave you the example of Amazon, right? So if we are using the same structure again and again, that will be very cumbersome and it will be very heavy. So earlier we used to create the same structure, but now we can use template rather than repeating the same structure over and over again, like we discussed for Amazon. So this was possible before, but it has been more easy with the HTML template element. So it is well supported with the modern browser, and now if we see, it defines the encapsulated markup of web component. So this element and its content are not rendered in DOM, but we can reference it using the JavaScript. And then template tag stores markup on page. Then it includes both HTML and CSS in template. So if we see here in the code snippet, here's the template, and if we just type this, then we will not see the content like SFD simplified. We have to, because template is not there, like we discussed, that define encapsulated Markov web component. So basically, it runs only when we write the JavaScript. So we define that in JavaScript, and that's how we are able to get it. So that's how the template works. So that we are not wanting to repeat the same code structure. And then comes the HTML import. So it's pretty straightforward. Imports allow you to include the HTML document within other HTML document. So like you can see here, HTML import uses the link element to reference that file we want to import. That is what is HTML element for you. So here if you talk about the HTML import, you can see that the imported HTML file contains like several links and script elements that are responsible for the styling. So you can see the stylish sheet and all those things. So we can simply do the import, and that is HTML import for you. So to understand, basically there are four pillars of web component, and they are the ones which help in creating the base for the web components.